The black folks in Louisville, they have love for the UK franchise. I guess maybe the blue. Maybe they're like me. They just like the blue color. Go big blue, royal blue. But that's, since UK has a long legacy of racism and racial bigotry and white supremacy, it's kind of hard, especially like they play at Rupp Arena, so they're still carrying on that legacy today. But it does make me think, like, what other things do black folks like that's like sort of, that would be, I would think, antithesis to, their struggle and their survival and religion. I mean, black folks love religion too. So the Klan was Christian, and a lot of the Bible thumpers were the ones who were defending the institution of slavery using the Bible. So one of the most famous, Adolph Rupp, he didn't want any black folks in on his team. He fought to have no black folks up until 1972. The only one black man was able to play on Adolph Rupp's team. He, during the entire 60s, made sure it stayed completely white. He had an effigy that he put up in the rafters for Tim Bassett. So he just showed Tim Bassett he wasn't welcome in the Southeast Conference. So they had an effigy, just like in 2008. There was a Barack Obama effigy at UK. And so, that's a connection that just shows the legacy of white supremacy and racial bigotry still carries on today. One of the most famous games of Adolph Rupp was in 1966. So this was against Don Haskins, and Don Haskins in the championship game of the NCAA, Don Haskins just wants to win the game, so he starts 5 black players, and then he's the first guy to do that. So he didn't want to be a pioneer. In fact, he says he got a lot of shit that happened to him, and he wished that he never won that game with Kentucky's. But he had put 5, starting black players, Texas Western, against the all-white Kentucky basketball team, and they won. So the black players had beat the white players, and then that sets in motion the desegregation and the integration of college basketball. So, which was great because I don't think Don Haskins or Don I think it's Haskins. I don't think he really understood the significance of that game for him to kind of be backing away from it. Don Haskins, he had showed that that black folks could beat white folks. So not only were they equal, but perhaps they could be superior. And so once you prove that, the idea of maintaining any type of segregation based on any fucking superfluous fucking reason, is some bullshit. So Don Haskins said that his life would have been easier, even as the jubilant miners celebrated a new set of myths was emerging. Adolph Rupp's lingering bitterness helped paint the miners as urban street thugs. So after he lost, he was saying that the Texas Western was just a bunch of street thugs, quasi-professionals imported from northern cities to win Don Haskins a championship. So he's sitting there saying that they were paid, and he's sitting there saying that there's all this corruption that's in it. And why would Adolph Rupp be alleging all this corruption? Probably because he was a corrupt fuck himself. He'd been in power for 40 years. Mubarak was only in power for 30 years, but Adolph Rupp was in power for another 10 extra years. And it's a lot of money. There's a lot of money goes through these programs, and so it's not governor or president, but it is a very powerful political position. The City College of New York (CCN) team won an NIT and NAACA championship in 1950, but 1 year later, some of the players were convicted of point shaving. Interesting enough, Kentucky was also embroiled in accusations of point shaving the very same year for the 1948-49 NIT game. So, he's sitting there alleging that they're doing it, but actually UK were the ones that was convicted of point shaving. And I don't even know how you shave points, but so the city's next game was against Kentucky, a prohibitive favorite, and it was here. I thought that the city season would end. Kentucky players, all white and all American, strutted into town, cocky and confident. Adolph Rupp, arrogant, successful, wealthy, named the Bluegrass Baron, once boasted he would never allow a black or a kite to play on his team. He knew that 3 Jews and 2 blacks started for City College, so he's sitting there, being anti-Semitic, just like Adolf Hitler. He's being anti-black, just like, the white supremacists who founded Lexington and UK. Coach Adolph Rupp was a bigot who barred the door to blacks at Kentucky and throughout the SEC for many years. A Bull Connor look-alike and a George Wallace act alike. He flaunted his racism and negatively influenced the racial nature of college basketball from the 1930s into the 1960s up to 1972. Here are 4 quotes among hundreds which illustrate his virulent racism. So Adolph Rupp, okay, here's the words of Adolph Rupp. Adolph Rupp, he said, "You got to beat those coons." He turned to center Thad Ratz, I don't know, Jaracz. You go after that big coon. You got to beat those coons. You got to go after that big coon. He talked that way all the time, and a chill went through me. I was standing in the back of the room. I looked around at the players, and they all kind of just ducked their heads. They're embarrassed. This was clearly the type of thing that went over the line. But it was also, it seemed like it was typical. Frank DeBoard, Sports Illustrated, reported on Coach Adolph Rupp's halftime exhortations in the UK Wildcats locker room. "Harry, that son of a bitch is ordering me to get some niggers in here. What am I going to do? He's the boss." Harry Lancaster, longtime assistant to Adolph Rupp, in his book Adolph Rupp as I Knew Him, Lexington Productions, 1979, quoting Adolph Rupp on Dr. John Oswald, UK president. So he's saying that son of a bitch is ordering me to get niggers in here. That's what Adolph Rupp is saying, right? He's ordering me to get some niggers to play on UK basketball, but I am Adolph Rupp, the legacy of Adolph Rupp Arena, and I don't want no black people to play on my team. So that's Adolph Rupp, right? And then let's see. Once I was on a flight with Adolph Rupp, and I sat with him in the first class section. He had about 6 Kentucky bourbons, and less than an hour was about halfway to the wind. I told him I was an attorney who represented some basketball players. Now, I'd never met the man. The first significant thing he said to me: "The trouble with the ABA is that there are too many nigger boys in it now." I sat there just stunned. That just killed my image of Adolph Rupp, the great coach. Maybe it's because he had too much to drink, but even so. This is in a book, Loose Balls, by Terry Pluto, Simon & Schuster, 1990, page 241. So the American Basketball Association, there are too many niggers in it now, so he's against, black people being in he's against fucking integration of the fucking teams. So he very much was the fucking villain of that, 1966 Texas Western game versus Don Haskins versus Adolph Rupp. He was the fucking white supremacist that was holding on to his white supremacy until the very last fucking straw, just like Bull fucking Connor. And George Wallace, right? He would be in the same fucking historical hiccup with those fuckers. Adolph Rupp liked to say he tried to recruit Wilt Chamberlain in the 1950s when the 7-foot Philadelphia phenomenon was talking basketball, but I could take him to Atlanta, New Orleans, or Starkville. Adolph Rupp asked rhetorically, and the walls came tumbling down. But I could take him to Atlanta, New Orleans, or Starkville. I don't know what that even means. So this, folks, is why I'll never be able to support anything that the University of Kentucky is associated with. They continue to honor that racist coach named Adolf Hitler Rupp. The vast majority of their fan base also still feel the same way. There's a story somebody had wrote in a blog. They said, "I am blown away every time I see a black dude wearing UK gear, especially when I see somebody from Louisville doing it. I feel the same way." I remember when they used to call Louisville the Blackbirds. That the Blackbirds instead of the Redbirds, they would say the Blackbirds, which was used by UK fans, to point out the different races. And, there's a story actually about Happy Chandler as a governor who had issued the word. And so when you issue it, it's not just you said the word. It's just that you had been saying it the whole time. You people that have been around you, you've been talking this fucking stupid talk for, probably your whole fucking lives, and nobody said anything about it. So when it slips out, which is what Happy Chandler is going to say, it slipped out, he kind of got roasted for it when he's 89 years old. And yeah, maybe you could expect some of that shit to happen, but I mean, it just indicates, some bigger phenomenon of those people. I still think Happy Chandler got a little bit more flack than Adolph Rupp. Adolph Rupp gets a fucking kind of a free pass for his, extreme fucking racism, throwing effigies in the fucking court, saying coon this, nigger that. Saying, man, I don't want niggers in the fucking basketball team. So he's all white, white supremacist, maintaining a culture of white supremacy, which has been with Kentucky since 1774, probably even before then, Hernando de Soto. And you have, Happy Chandler, he's going to say he's a trustee for University of Kentucky, okay? And then Ashley Judd is going to protest him for his comments that he made. So 89 years old, he's a trustee for UK, and the ex-governor Happy Chandler said Zimbabwe is all nigger now. And this is, during the 60s, so this is during the South African apartheid regime regarding South Africa and their apartheid regime with Nelson Mandela. Happy Chandler happily declared Zimbabwe is all nigger now. And this is to scare the whites into thinking that South Africa would go the same way. And he's like, there's no whites. There's no whites in Zimbabwe, right? And so if there's apartheid, if they end apartheid, then, are they going to wipe out the whites like they did in Haitian Revolution? And so he was kind of saying, well, there's no whites. Zimbabwe's all nigger now. And so when he had said that at a meeting at UK, then the media had got a hold of it, and then he had to backtrack a little bit because he wasn't going to apologize for it. So the reaction by the students and the players were exceptional too, because they were willing to sacrifice their blue-white football game until Happy Chandler had paid for his remarks. So some of the football players are saying, it's 1980s. We don't talk like that anymore. And it is true. It is 1988 is what they said. This is 1988. You can't be talking like an asshole, And so this is a whole nother fucking 16 years after Adolph Rupp, stops coaching. So we still see racism at UK persisting. We'll see it in 2008 with another effigy, another Adolph Rupp like effigy, not of just the basketball player, but of the president. So another, institutional change, another racial barriers being broken, and UK is standing up and saying we represent the opposite side. So the Dave Johnson, the team spokesman, says the term is not acceptable. It's 1988. It's 2013. Stop being homophobe. Stop hating black people. Stop fucking hating. That's just fuck you. Wallace Wilkinson did not call for his resignation, and so the governor could have, he's the one that appoints him, I guess, and so the governor could have said, well, you better apologize, and actually he did force him later on to apologize. And the way Happy Chandler has explained, he said that the word nigger was used consistently in his hometown of Henderson County in western Kentucky. So Henderson County, you're fucking racist. If white people are still using the N-word, as consistently and frequently as he's saying it, he's trying to say, that's just how I was raised. It's what I was doing. Well, it's wrong, Happy fucking Chandler. You can't just be fucking saying nigger this, nigger that. And he says it slips out every now and then. I'm not trying to be offensive. Well, this is a fucking offensive word. How much harder would it have been to say black or African American? Zimbabwe is now all black folks now. It's, all the white people have been expelled. So, like, why couldn't you have said it like that? And by saying niggers, it's saying that you're on one side, you think they're not human. That's a derogatory remark. And it also is kind of saying like you feel for the whites, you feel for the white people who have been doing all these horrendous, atrocities, and they had, that was what their country had decided to do, to expel the whites. So Happy Chandler initially said that he didn't plan to apologize unless he was told to do so by UK President David Rossell or Governor Wallace Wilkinson. However, Wilkinson, who appointed Happy Chandler to a voting position on the university governing board earlier this year, said apology was in order. About 40 UK students representing 6 organizations marched to the administration building yesterday to meet with Rossell. I wonder if Ashley Judd was a part of that. The UK Student Government Association approved a resolution last night calling for Chandler's resignation from the regents. So the students are, passing legislation to get him kicked out. Chandler said that while growing up in Corydon in Henderson County, there were 400 whites and 400 blacks. We called them niggers, and they didn't mind. We loved each other. We never had any trouble. I integrated schools when other governors were sending troops in to keep blacks out. I was sending troops in to keep them in. So he's kind of pointing out his legacy, that he had been a defender of black folks, and that could be true. So he could be a racialist, not a racist. He sees differences between the white culture and black culture, but he's also in favor of, helping black folks. He also said he was part of the commission when the first black player, Jackie Robinson, when first Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, he was the commissioner he was the baseball commissioner. So he takes credit for that too. So, but like the way he's described it, he said we called them niggers and they didn't mind. We loved each other. So he might have had a love, a feeling of affinity towards black folks, but there's no way that black folks fucking liked being called niggers all the time. That's fucking shitty. Okay, that was all the white people just fucking doing it, and you going along with it, and that created a racial dictatorship of white supremacy over, over black folks. So I don't buy your explanation, Happy.